The White House is ramping up for a very busy end of year. President Biden is hoping to pass his Build Back Better social spending plan as a looming government shutdown and debt ceiling crisis hangs in the balance. On top of all of that, there is this new coronavirus variant. So for more on all of this and how the White House is responding, let's bring in Nancy Cordes. She's joining me now from the White House. So Nancy, let's begin with this new variant. President Biden is planning to give an update on the Omicron variant later on this morning. What can we expect to hear from him?
Well, I don't know that we'll hear that much in the way of specifics, certainly not all the details that Americans are hoping for, because when I've spoken to White House officials over the weekend, they freely acknowledge there's still so much they don't know about the Omicron variant. It was only discovered about a week ago, and it's going to take a couple more weeks, they say, to learn about things like transmissibility or how virulent this particular virus strain is. And until they know that, until they know how susceptible it is to the vaccine, there's not much in the way of concrete information that the president can pass along to the nation. Nevertheless, they do want to send the message that they are on top of this, that they are tracking this virus. He will probably go into some detail about the steps that have been taken so far when it comes to travelers coming into this country. He'll also most likely talk about the conversations that CDC officials have been having with state and local health officials around the country this weekend to keep them up to speed on what they do and don't know. But I suspect that we're going to hear from the president about this issue multiple times this week as we begin to learn more about a variant that is still somewhat mysterious in many ways.
So as we know, sort of the first thing that was announced to help to limit the spread of this new variant is this travel ban that begins today for people coming from South Africa. But we already know that the variant has popped up in other countries. We saw what happened at the beginning of this pandemic when there was all this focus on China and a lot of the virus ended up flying over from Europe and landing here in the U.S. So do we know if the White House is considering perhaps expanding the current travel ban?
It's certainly possible as they begin to learn more about the spread of the virus, how virulent it is. At the same time, you do have some public health officials and some policy experts like Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who was on Face the Nation yesterday, saying this really isn't great policy making because, as you point out, Anne-Marie, this virus has already been on the move. It's already been detected in Europe, in Canada, multiple continents. So at this point, does shutting off travel from a handful of countries in Africa really do much to stop the spread? But what the White House is arguing is that they still know so little. This is going to be a short-term measure as they gain more information, and then things could certainly change. Now, how might they change? Might they put in new restrictions from travelers coming from all over the world? Or would they continue to just block travelers from a certain segment of countries? We still don't know. All of that is going to depend on what we learn about the spread of this variant over the next couple of weeks.
So in the meantime, there's other work to be done. The president is trying to pass his Build Back Better plan in the Senate. I don't know, could this new variant and the fact that, you know, the White House is going to have to pivot and at least focus on it for a little bit, does it have the possibility of derailing President Biden's social spending package?
You know, I suppose it's possible if this variant turned out to, you know, sort of cause cases to mushroom overnight and the focus really shifted. Otherwise, no, I think that they probably can walk and chew gum at the same time. You've got different teams dealing with both of these issues. And frankly, a lot of the work when it comes to the Build Back Better plan is taking place not at the White House at this point, but on Capitol Hill, where Senate Democrats are working to make some changes to the bill after it passed the House to bring those final two Senate Democrats, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, on board. They're hoping that they can do that by the end of the month. But I've got to tell you, Anne-Marie, the legislative calendar is looking extremely crowded over the next, say, 2.5 3 weeks, because in addition to the hopes among Democrats that they can pass the Build Back Better plan by the end of the year, they don't have to, but they'd like to, they've got a couple of really hard and fast deadlines. They have to fund the government by the end of this week, by Friday, or the lights shut off. So no one wants to see that happen. And they've got to raise the debt ceiling. Remember that the Congress basically punted in September. There was this big fear that the U.S. was going to default because Republicans were refusing to work with Democrats to raise the debt ceiling. They said Democrats control the House and the Senate. They should do it on their own. There was this big standoff. And at the end of the day, they blinked and they agreed to raise it on a short-term basis for a few months. But now you got a lot of Republicans saying they're really, really, really not going to help raise the debt ceiling this time around. And so we're going to be watching to see how that situation plays out. So when Congress has all of these must-dos to get done by the holidays, it makes it that much more difficult to pass the Build Back Better plan as well. That's something that could get pushed into the beginning of next year.
Every year, Nancy, I feel like we have the same conversation, which we knew we were going to have earlier this year when they just sort of temporarily, pass these temporary bills. And we'll be discussing this for the next, 4 weeks until the end of the year, I'm sure. Nancy Cordes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.